Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Rachel Cruze Show. And today's episode, I have one of you on with me, and Sheena is coming on to ask a question in regards to her money, and we're going to kind of talk through her situation and guide her through what is best. So Sheena, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it. And you're calling from where?
From Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. Great city. So good. Okay, so tell me a little bit about where you are financially, a little bit of, marital status. You have kids, kind of give me a little bit of a background of what's going on.
Sure. So married with a stepdaughter and a 3-year-old and one on the way.
Oh, congratulations. When are you due?
January.
Oh, so great. Coming up.
Halfway through this week.
So good.
So it's been a beautiful blessing.
Awesome.
So married. So the stepdaughter is in college. And so I've got my little one at home with me in daycare. So I work in the hospitals, and between my husband and I, who's a detective for local police force, we make about $200 a year. But we're also on baby step 2, so we owe about that same amount because of student loans, medical school, all those kind of things. So working really diligently, gazelle intent on baby step 2, which is where we are.
I love it. So what made you guys decide this, to do something and say, you know what, we want to aggressively pay down our debt. We want to get rid of it. We don't want to just hang it around for the next, 5, 6, 8 years.
Yeah. Well, it was actually when I was pregnant with my daughter, they had a financial class at the hospital, and I had never learned about it, I guess, and decided to take it upon myself to go to that class and learn about it. And they threw out, the Ramsey name. And so I started looking into it. Well, who is this Dave Ramsey guy? Who is this Rachel Cruze girl? And just started really honing in and listening to lots of podcasts and reading the books, listening to the books on tape when I drove. And just got really, really gazelle intent.
That's amazing. Okay, what'd your husband say when you came home and you're like, here's this whole new thing I want to do. Let's do it together. What was his response?
Well, I have so many ideas in life that he just kind of goes with them from now on. So no, he was all over it. He knew that anything I set my mind on, we're going to do. So he just kind of rolled with it.
I love it. Okay, before we get to your question, I want to know, because $200,000 of debt, it's a lot. Obviously, you guys make a great income, so you have a big shovel to kind of help fill in that hole. But what were you feeling, in your heart and everything when you decide, okay, I want to do something different? Because you don't just decide, all right, yeah, I'm kind of stressed with this, so we're going to just pay it off. I mean, were you really kind of like, I feeling the weight of that $200,000?
Yeah, feeling the weight. So, I had gone to school for a long time and never really knew how to make the money and what to pay off first. So that was my first question was, okay, what do we attack first? And so I started looking into it and started researching, and the Ramsey Solutions site just kept coming up and up and up. And so I said, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. This seems to be the golden ticket to get out of debt and move forward and, live and give like no one else. So
I love that. Yeah, because I think that it's, it obviously you're more motivated than just math. Math helps where you're like, okay, good. If I'm not paying out this money in debt, I'm going to be able to use it and invest it and do different things. But there is that emotional drive. Money is very emotional. And so to be able to say, God, I feel this weight, I feel a burden, I feel overwhelmed. I want to start this journey to get this out of my life. I don't want anything to do with it. So I think that's a very real thing and a great motivator for a sense. I think that I think we miss that sometimes on why we start this journey. So those of you watching that haven't started, if you have those emotions and you're feeling that, that's normal. That's kind of what debt does. And then once you start to gain control and have a plan to get out of debt, it just gives you this relief and kind of this intensity, like you were saying, Sheena. So I love that. Okay. So what was your question that you wanted to come here on the show for?
Yeah. So my biggest question was, before I met everyone, then I had already started kind of a 401k with my company because they had already had a match, a 6% match. And so before I even started the baby steps, I was already contributing to that. So my big question is, I've kind of saved up quite a chunk of change in there, and my heart really wants to take that out and put it right on my student loan. But I get the feeling that's not what I'm supposed to do. So that's my big question is, what do I do with it? Do I keep contributing to a 401k? Do I switch to a Roth? When does that all transpire?
Yes, great question. Great question. Well, first and foremost, I don't want you cashing it out because there's going to be tons of penalties and fees and all of that when you cash out retirements, obviously before the age that you're supposed to. So do not cash out. Leave it in there, number one. Number two, though, I would pause. I would pause it, even though you're getting a great match and, you know, all the math nerds out there are like, no, because it's like free money, you know, all of this. I get it. But when you're on baby step 2, your biggest goal is to put as much money as possible towards the debt. So cutting everything out from expenses, but also things like investing. So any 401k, Roth IRA, any of that, we pause all of that and put all that cash towards the debt because it's going to help you get out of debt faster. And then you'll actually have more income to invest later on in the baby steps, and you'll have plenty of time to catch up. And again, this is pausing it. I like to say pause versus stop. Stop makes it sound like we're never going to go back to it. Pausing is like, no, we're going to go press play again, and we will soon. But it'll be in a few years, and you know, not putting the money in again freaks people out. But I promise you're going to make it back because you're actually going to have more cash to put in retirement later. So yeah, number one, do not cash it out, just leave it, and then number two, just pause it, and you'll come back to it. But again, I think it's so, I love your situation in a sense, just on a number standpoint, because you guys do have a great income. But the problem is you've been living probably like you make $200 a year because that's what you make. And that's probably the lifestyle and all of that. So cutting some stuff for anyone out there is very difficult. But can you think of things right now? Have you mapped out a plan at all, like in your budget or anything where you think, okay, we're on track to pay off debt in X amount of time, or we're able to cut our lifestyle down in half? Like, kind of what are you thinking? Because you guys could be out of debt in 18, 24 months, like if you really went for it.
Oh, that makes me feel better because I was thinking 3 years, which that's been my goal.
Okay.
Is 3 years. And so, yeah, we've cut out a lot of different things. You know, I'm the nerd. He's the spender. He's the free spirit. Yes. So we've cut out a lot of things, even just subscriptions that we weren't using and, buying organic food at Aldi's instead of at, a bigger brand name place.
Yep.
So yeah, making lots of small behavior changes, I guess, is kind of what the key to our success in the last year has been. So I kind of had to prove to him that this worked before he was really on board with it. And he's just seen the light. We finally kind of combined incomes, which was a big deal. Thank you for always talking about those kind of things. That just gave us kind of the language and the jargon to have those conversations, that we weren't having, I suppose, looking at debts that we didn't know that each other had.
Yes, no, absolutely. It does. It opens up a whole other door of all that communication. So how does it feel now, just in a marriage sense, with you and your husband now? Like, what is that like for you guys? What is marriage like now that wasn't there 3 years ago?
Much more open. We have our conversations about our budget. It's more me bringing it to the table and saying, that's okay. Let's have this conversation. But yeah, just having the conversation together and having that openness about where is our money going instead of, if this disappeared, we need to stop doing this. Let's really hone in and sit down together and figure out where it needs to go first.
I love that so much. What an amazing job, you guys. I mean, seriously, kudos to you, because change is hard. And when you decide, especially when you have a big pile of debt like that, I think it's so easy to feel so defeated, thinking, we'll just keep it around. Everyone else does. I mean, I don't know, it's from medical school, right? We have kind of all these excuses that you hear of like, but to actually say, no, you know what? We're going to cut our lifestyle. We're going to make different choices. We're going to work together for the first time with our money. And that's kind of scary and intimidating and vulnerable and all of that. And we're going to come together and try this whole new way of looking at life. To be able to do that as an adult is really hard. So I just want to applaud you guys for even just taking the plunge in. And I'm so thankful you're seeing the benefits already. Not just the benefits in marriage and your relationship, which is amazing, but the benefits on a tactical level, right? Being able to map out and say, okay, in 3 years we can do this. And I think it's a beautiful thing. Well, I'm gonna push for 2.5 years for you secretly.
If you said 18 to 24,
I don't know. Well, I just thought, man, you could live on nothing. You could live on nothing and get this like knocked out super fast. But no, you guys are doing an amazing job. And once you kind of see that light and you get that feeling, it's hard to stop it. You're kind of like, okay, I'm going to keep going and going. So amazing job. But again, answer your question. Yeah. Don't cash out that 401k. It's tempting because I know there's some money and you think, oh, we can knock out a big chunk, but it's not worth the penalties and the fees and all that. So pause, but you guys are going to be able to live and give like no one else real soon. So I'm really excited for you guys. And you're just doing an absolutely amazing job, and you're doing it while you're pregnant. So I'll say kudos to you for that too.
Well, thank goodness for hand-me-downs.
That's right. So great. Well, thank you, Sheena, so much for calling in. I so appreciate it. I think it's always so helpful to see and hear from people that are just doing this. You know, you're in the trenches doing it day in and day out. And there's so many people that are seeing this or listening to this that are in your boats. And so I know that they're cheering you on as well. And
Thank you. It was definitely overwhelming. And I think now that we're kind of seeing a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel and just that the traction's starting, you know, and I think if anybody out there is listening that's got a big pile of debt, you know, you just got to keep going, got to keep hammering. So
that's it. Spoken from her. You got it right there. Oh, so amazing. And for you guys out there that want to start this plan and do something, you can go check out our membership, Ramsey Plus, and you can sign up for a free membership if you text 33789 and text Rachel Plus to that number and start that membership, because it's going to help walk you through how to do exactly what Sheena's doing and working on a budget, working with your spouse, getting out of debt. All of it is there in Ramsey Plus. So make sure to check that out. And if you have a question for me, for Ask Rachel, you can go to any of my social media channels. You can go to YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of it. We're checking it, and maybe you can be on the show next. And remember, you guys, to take control of your money and create a life you love.